Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome. This is Rochelle with the Healing Rose, and today I'm doing a flip through of an older deck, and I think I may have mentioned it in another video, the Revelations Tarot by Zach Wong. And so this is a Llewellyn deck. It came in a box set when I received mine, so I don't have an individual box for the deck. It came in one of those big boxes. And it came with the book. So the book is, available individually. And what I really actually find interesting is the concept behind the deck. So it is meant to be a reversal deck. It is specifically designed that way, which is kind of a really interesting way to read. And so I thought, let's just take a look at that. So the book is a very no-nonsense book. There is a sort of essentially what is a one-page preface, which just talks about how the creation of the deck came about. Then we're straight into the major arcana. Each card, such as the Fool, has the upright meaning, and then it has the reversed meaning. And what's cool about this deck is that it's actually very much like old school playing cards, and that, half the image is upright or upright, whichever way you look at it. So we're not actually looking at an upside down image. We're actually looking at the essence of what the reversed image means, which to me, I thought actually was a super cool idea for a deck. Really liked it. The book is very clear. The deck did come with a couple of extra cards, the horoscope spread, and the other spread card that came with it is a 7-day spread, and both of these are in the back of the book. So the back of the book also has a couple of spreads. So we pretty much get the same treatment for whether it is a minor arcana. Oh, good English today. Or if it is a major arcana, where we're given a little upright, we're given reverse, and then images and symbolism that are within the actual card itself. So very no nonsense, very straight to the point, actually a very easy book to read through. Okay, so let's take a look at the cards. I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer so we can have a nice little flip through. All right. So the first card is, of course, the Fool. And it's, it's our general Llewellyn cardstock, so it's very flippy. The backs are lovely and completely reversible. So here is our reversed Fool, which I quite enjoy this, right? The one is light and it's bright and we're taking the leap off the mountain, and the other one is kind of like hesitant, drawing back. Maybe there's a little bit of confusion in the background here. I so love this concept, right? Now here's our Magician. So the upright, the active, and then when we reverse it, we get a whole other sense of what's going on with that energy there. We have our High Priestess, which I really love this. The sense of light and dark, the bright side aspect to it, the shadow side to it. It's a very, very interesting way to look at the tarot, because I know there's a lot of people now, it seems to be, maybe kind of shy away from actively using reversals. And I know, in my general focused readings, and certainly when I'm at fairs, I don't have a deck that's shuffled for reversals. Just because sometimes I find people that know like a little bit about tarot and they see a reversed card, they're like, oh, what's that? So I want to make especially my little mini readings at the fair, I want to make them a pleasant experience for people where they feel, a little bit more perhaps, empowered as they walk away from the reading. Feel a little bit more inspired to take some positive action. So I kind of love the two aspects. The duality that we're given with each card to me is very, very interesting versus just looking, you know, at the upside down Chariot. We're actually given a very different viewpoint as we go through. And we have our Strength card. And then we have that reversal. And I love how one is kind of like a stained glass window and the other one looks like it's more like a closed door. Very sort of interesting take on, I kind of love this concept. The difference between the two hermits there is so interesting. And I find the wheel to be really fascinating, right? Like the upright's a little bit more active. The reversed is, you know, it's still, there's still a lot of bright color here. It's not like it's necessarily a shadowed aspect, but yeah, I am quite fascinated. Oops. By the shift, by the difference in the two. You know, justice when it's reversed, it's things are unbalanced, right? And on the upright, they're very balanced. So we have a little bit of, you know, chaos, things going sideways, you know, things being less favorable. I do kind of love this Hanged Man because we have both upright and reversed, no matter which way we look at this, right? There's sort of, the two are intertwined. Very, really kind of fascinating. The Hanged Man is probably one of the most interesting ones for me in this whole deck. And then we have our ending and we have our new beginning with our death. Temperance. Quite an interesting, I really enjoy this Temperance card. And some of them are very interesting in that, you know, on one side, it's a very, very male energy. And when you flip it on the other side, there is very feminine energy. And we have the Tower, which is like kind of all chaotic and coming apart. And here it's, you know, we're in different stages, different aspects. And with the Star. So I found it to be a really interesting concept. I got this deck when it was new a while ago. And it's not one that I've actually seen around a lot. I am going to check to see if it's actually still in print, which I didn't do before I decided to do the flip through, but I decided to do the flip through just to give people a more in-depth look at it, because it is one of my decks that I'm focusing on for the month of March, because I've decided to change the way I do my tarot studies just a little bit this year, and my deck studies, in that I am, you know, really kind of trying to be very intentional and very focused on the decks that I'm going to work with for the month and how I'm going to work with them, and kind of, you know, narrowing the focus down a little bit, because I found that last year the decks that stayed on my list all year and didn't really get much use are very, you know, I still didn't end up doing anything with them by the end of the year. And I was kind of like, all right, you know, I spent a lot of time. I do have a daily tarot and oracle practice. So this one, we're very lit up, we're very active. And this one is kind of very, very dulled down, which is quite interesting. So I thought for me to be much more focused and much more active with my practice, that it would be really helpful for me to create a much more intentional practice. And I find this really interesting, right? We have our Three of Wands here, where it's so energetic, whereas here, there's a very, very different energy if you just look at half the card. This has a very, very different energy to it than when we're looking at this energy. Yeah. So really kind of a fun and cool deck to work with. You know, instead of just looking at an upside down image, we're actually getting almost an entirely new image just by doing that reversal. And although I've had it for a while and was totally like, oh my God, what a cool concept. I have to have this deck. I found that I just I got it. I flipped through it, went so cool. Love the artwork, love the colors. And then I didn't really do much with it. You know, I didn't really, it just kind of went on the shelf, just stayed in the collection. And so now, and I think it's because at first, even though it's really fascinating, I felt like I wasn't getting enough information from the imagery, or I wasn't picking up on nuances in it, even though visually it's really lovely. And I'm kind of at a very different place in my practice, you know, because it was probably a good decade or so that that I got this deck. So it's kind of you know, since I'm in this I don't know what it is, maybe more receptive place with tarot. I'm finding now the way my brain is seeing patterns is very different, and the way I'm reading symbolism in decks is very different from how I did before. So I feel kind of like I'm in a really good place to be a little more, you know, to focus on it in a bit of a different way. I don't even know if that makes sense. But, you know, it's like as my practice has expanded, as my practice has shifted, it's I feel really good actually about wanting this to be a deck that I explore with a little bit more, just because the concept it's kind of really, really fascinating. I love the sense of layers that we have. You know, so we get when we're using these active reversals, I do feel like it adds a bit of a different layer, a bit of a different nuance to a reading. And it's interesting because I kind of only stopped reading with reversals a very short time ago. So, you know, our Five of Cups, like what a different perspective, right? We're clearly like really holding on to these cups. And over here, it's like, you know, we're just like in a very passive place, right? It's like from passively allowing something to happen to being like actively involved in creating some kind of a change or a shift. So, you know, very different energies, whichever way we're looking at this. And I really, really, like, I'm really, really appreciating that so much more now. I pulled it off the shelf the other day, and just because there's an oracle that I want to work with, and I was like, oh, I know I have a deck that has the same kind of coloration, and I think it would make a really beautiful pairing, and I think I want to work with those two together. Let's see what that looks like. And then, you know, dug this one out, and then I'm just like, oh, I really need to work with this one. And I do love that we have these really kind of interesting, You know, two very interesting images. Which, you know, in one sense, I feel like, you know, that could be something that's very helpful as you are learning a deck, that you actually have something to work with, whichever direction your deck is facing, versus going, okay, it means this when it's upright, but when I turn it upside down, what am I understanding from the symbolism in it? And this is giving us like that whole new set of symbols to work with. Very, very cool. I kind of love this Queen of Cups. Like, is she not like so fabulous with all those tentacles? I'm absolutely in love with and I love the nuance between the different, you know, the elements in each suit is really well addressed in this tarot. Very, very cool. So we have our, and it's not like, you know, with the aces, they're so different necessarily. It's just kind of like, I don't know. It's very interesting because this is clearly an image that can absolutely, like, when you turn it upside down, it's not like suddenly you're looking at an upside down picture. It's like the shift in the energy is really, really clear. And we have our Two of Swords, which has such different energy, right? There's so much of that sort of like yin yang energy happening back and forth through this deck, which I find really, really kind of fascinating. Three of Swords is so interesting when you reverse it. I'm really quite fascinated by this art style that that Zach, is it Wong? Yeah, Zach Wong has created. Five of Swords, it's so fascinating, right? It's almost more like the struggle within yourself as opposed to like dealing with, you know, as if it's like outside forces. And the Six of Swords is so very interesting with this sort of, you know, like ethereal mirroring that's happening with the water. And such dramatically different energy. And that Eight of Swords, from, you know, being really like bound and unable to see clearly, to like, you know, taking that, freeing yourself from it kind of energy. I love that. Nine of Swords. And this Ten of Swords, I think, is very, very interesting. Because we've taken a figure that, you know, normally would be this way, and just even shifting it so it's almost more kind of like a hanged man, sort of interesting, really interesting. And then our Knight, so active. And then the energy is so very different once we reverse it. You know, it's like not quite so, there's not quite so much momentum in that, you know, facing things head on versus, you know, this kind of like, she doesn't really quite want to like face things head on, a little bit more inward focus, a little bit less about, this is so just like strong and bold. All right, and then we have our king. And then we have that reversed king, which is very interesting. It's not like it's such, you know, dynamically so different of an image, but it's like that bit of, that's something that's obscured there. I find this such a fascinating tarot to look through. And so very interesting with the mass market, you know. So we have our Two of Pentacles. And it's like one is like way more stressed out, and the other one is like very serene and very much capable of handling whatever is going on, right? We're like very active, smiling, working, to just being like, and that kind of very sort of, you know, it's like active versus passive. There's so much going on in this tarot. I love it. Right? The Four that is, you know, sharing versus like the Four that's like holding on. Five of Pentacles is quite, and it's, you know, it's interesting, even though there's like this strong elemental theme going through each suit, it's not that it's necessarily like one solid color theme, which I do enjoy, because it's like, you know, if every pentacle was green and every cup was blue, and it kind of feels, you know, this to me feels so interesting. Absolutely in love with the color work in this one. And there's our 8. Totally love this Nine of Pentacles. We still have some very sort of traditional Rider-Waite with the bird and that sense of, you know, being in the garden. And then on this side, it's like, you know, such a different sense. It's like being in the ruin of a garden, almost. All right, here's our page. And we have our Knight, which is very, very different energies between the two Knights. Here's our Queen. And then the King. So very interesting. Absolutely in love with this deck. All right, so let's just zoom out just a smidge. There we go, so we can see. So it has an excellent shuffle. And, you know, it is meant to be worked with reversals, so I will be, as I go through and work with this deck, I will be flipping them all around and moving them every which way. So, and this is a deck where, you know, he did study based on the Rider-Waite. So it is very Rider-Waite Smith based, even though a lot of the symbolism is quite different and drawn on from a lot of different sources, from different books and information found online, and looking at all the different symbolism to see what goes in there. So usually when I have a deck that's, you know I'm going to reverse with it, I kind of take it and shift it around and don't even worry about them, what's up, what's down, what's sideways, because it's kind of challenging to sort of get it, to be really intentionally right side down or this way or that way, And so no matter which way you pick up the deck, if I'm holding it this way, certain cards will always be upright, and this way they'll always be reversed. But then every time you shuffle and shift it, then it's going to all come out in different directions, right? And there's no like right or wrong way to shuffle a tarot deck, and you can do this multiple times when you're trying to first get a deck organized. So let's take a look at what the book says about one of the cards, and let's see this one. We'll take that one, since I'm throwing cards everywhere. It doesn't matter how I put them back in because I know I'm working with this. All right, so we have Page of Wands, and let's look at our reversal. So 3 of Wands, 10, Page. Okay, let's move that. Okay, so Page of Wands, let's look at the reversed. She tries in vain to channel her energy and bring anything forth to fruition. Her frustration and self-imposed strain has blocked the flow within her. Okay, right? So we're just looking at, this is like really just working with talking about the energy that's flowing, which, is kind of very, let's look at it this way. So we're just seeing, that's sort of focusing on that aspect of the card. All right. Frustration comes from a blockage within. You may feel tired from pushing so hard, and you may feel that your efforts have been in vain. Unable to get in touch with your inner powers, creative energy seems to spurt out in sparks with nothing else to show for it. This card suggests taking a break and letting the energy come naturally. In a situation, this card warns of difficulties in venturing in new fields. There may be a creative or artistic difficulties or an instability of emotion from stress and general unhappiness. Partnerships and relationships will be tested. Because of course, you're someone sitting in a state of frustration. Of course, we're going to have those kinds of things, right? So the images and symbolism in this card. The page has discovered her ability to conjure. The ethereal dragon marks the birth of her powers. She reflects the beginning of lessons and trainings, which one has to take to fully comprehend and control one's inner energy. On the reverse, this page is unable to channel her powers, for she is trying too hard. Her frustration only compounds this situation and creates a further block. This card suggests taking slower steps and allowing the energy to flow outward naturally. The color, red and purple, colors of raw energy and royalty. So, interesting information that the book gives us, right? Maybe a little bit different take on what's going on with the page, because, I love that it's talking about the flow of energy as opposed to, it's a young person who's very passionate about their creative pursuits, right? We're not just looking at a person who's a certain age or an aspect of personality, but literally being in a situation where things are stuck. So I kind of love that approach in this deck that, a lot of people approach court cards in very different ways. And I do like this, just more reading it as a situation versus reading it as a person. So that's kind of I think it's going to be really fun getting to work with this deck again, because it's been a while. When did I get this? I got it when it was a new release, 2012. Yeah. So it's been a while. It's been about 14 years that it's been hanging about. So I feel like it's about time that it takes its place within my collection as an active working deck. it feels like something that really wants to connect right now. So I hope you've enjoyed this little flip through. And if you've stuck around this long, if you wouldn't mind hitting that little thumbs up button if you've enjoyed yourself. And if you feel called to subscribe, that would be absolutely fantastic. And just a note to let you know, I will never direct message or privately contact someone to solicit a reading. If you want a reading with me, all my readings are now booked only through my website. So absolutely feel free to reach out to me directly on my website. The link will be down in the description if you feel like you ever want to book a private reading for yourself or coaching to do with tarot. Absolutely feel free to reach out. I love reading everyone's comments as well. I hope you have an amazing week. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.